Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Just wanted to cover a couple things this afternoon, and then we'll be open to questions. Just wanted to start with kind of a quick summary of my trip to Washington, D.C. As you are probably aware, I went to participate in the Washington Post Empowering Cities seminar. And really, it was to talk about the state's commitment, the first state in the country to commit to 100% renewable sources for electricity generation by 2045. And my purpose there was really to put Hawaii on the map. I would like you to know the backdrop, which was really a map of the United States and showing all of the lights from all of the cities did not include Hawaii in that backdrop. So clearly my purpose was really to make people understand what we're doing here. It is clear that Hawaii leads the nation in renewable energy, more importantly on our focus to be 100% renewable by 2045. I talked about why it's important to our state, our economy, the opportunities that I found on my trip to Japan in talking with potential business partners, Hitachi and others that are interested in working in Hawaii as a test bed and looking to invest in Hawaii. And then most importantly about our policy focus to accelerate the deployment of renewable in our network. At the same time, I had visited and followed up with a number of federal agencies that I visited in February, just working to continue the efforts to expand and draw down federal funds, as well as opportunities to expand our economy. I met with the State Department to discuss pre-clearance. I did meet with Prime Minister Abe the week before in Japan to talk about how important pre-clearance at Narita Airport was to the state of Hawaii, and got assurances from both the Japanese government as well as the State Department that it was something that both of them saw value in, and we will be continuing to work through that. I also talked with the State Department about the upcoming 2016 International Union for Conservation of Nature conference that will be hosted here in Hawaii. So again, discussing federal participation, ensuring that we can get support from the federal agencies and that they would participate in that conference. I met with the Department of Housing and Urban Development to discuss homelessness. As you may be aware, the department is focused on ending homelessness for veterans by the end of the year. I've been working with Mayor Caldwell and the other mayors to really make progress in this area. So we discussed and shared strategies. I also had the opportunity to discuss with the department the concern about unexploded ordnance on Hawaiian homelands. As you may be aware, the projects with NAHASDA has been put on hold on Hawaiian homelands because of the finding of unexploded ordnances in the Hawaiian homesteads. Also had the opportunity to talk with the Environmental Protection Agency. They've been working on a clean power initiative, talked about Hawaii's 100% initiative to really be on renewable energy by 2045. They definitely was interested and wanted to also be able to promote that as they are preparing their clean power regulations to be issued this summer. Talked about, I was able to meet with the Federal Emergency Management Agency. As you may be aware, the state of Hawaii hosted the Makani Pahila exercise, one of the largest exercises in the country, to be prepared for a disaster. And I thank the administrator for their participation. You know, we had thousands of professionals participating, including those from Region 9 up to the National Emergency Preparedness Organization, so that we could be prepared if there is a disaster of significance here during this hurricane season, that we would have exercised control and interaction at the highest level of the Federal Emergency Management Agency. We were able to tour the control center up in Washington, D.C., as well as meet with the key agency partners. Again, I had the opportunity to meet with the Federal Department of Transportation, have been talking about our efforts to reduce the backlog, about our efforts to get pre-clearance done in the Narita Airport, and then most importantly, working on the Kona Airport International Terminal. And we had a very good dialogue. They'll be sending a team out to Kona to tour the airport facility and really go through what specific actions and changes we need to make to upgrade Kona to an international port of entry. And then we had a long conversation about the rehabilitation at Kahului Airport. That is a project that is ongoing, that we have authorized, but we're working to be able to work through all of the environmental reviews so that we can move that project forward. And then the last meeting was really with Centers for Medicaid and Medicare to talk about the Health Connector. I had the opportunity to meet with Andrew Slavic, who's the administrator in charge of Medicare services, and Secretary Burwell, to talk about the status of Hawaii Health Connector. We had a very good dialogue. They are committed to ensuring and working with us in this transition to ensure that all of the people of Hawaii who currently are enrolled are able to continue to receive services through this transition period. So we had a very good discussion and dialogue about what funds from the grant they would be willing to release for what purposes. And we are working to ensure that we have a smooth transition from the state-based exchange to the federally supported exchange without dropping those citizens from getting coverage. So that kind of was my couple of days in DC. I thought that it was very fruitful, again, to really reconfirm in those most important agencies that we are committed, that this is a change in what we do and how we do business. As all of you are aware, I released the intent to veto list to the state legislature, the House and the Senate. I just want to emphasize that the intent to veto and being those bills on the list just gives me the option to veto if they are not, and all bills that are not identified then will either become law without my signature, or I will have until July 14th to sign. You know, I'll prepared and I released for your review kind of the first pass of the statement of objections, the reasons the bills are on the veto list, so that you can see and the public can see what the concerns raised are. And we'll be moving forward. As you know, there are 8 bills on the list, and I'll kind of walk through real quickly. And then I think we'll be open to questions. First is House Bill 540, extends authority for UH to maintain separate accounting and financial management system. On this bill, the university has raised significant constitutional issues with the measure. They really do believe that it violates the university's autonomy. Second bill was really about House Bill 553, allowing UH graduates to graduate student assistants employed by the university to collectively bargain their wages, hours, and other terms. I'm committed to improving the working conditions of graduate students across the state, but clearly this bill had issues. We're committed to looking to see what can be done without formally creating a bargaining unit. As you know, the university does have some autonomy. And I think most importantly, we are interested in listening and working with the graduate students to hear their concerns and seeing what can be done administratively without implementing House Bill 553. Senate Bill 105 requires estimated future debt service for proposed CIP projects to be included in the budget documents submitted to the legislature. We are committed to transparency and we do understand what the legislature's concerns are, but we do believe that the provisions in Senate Bill 105 are very difficult and nearly impossible to implement as outlined. We would be looking to understand more fully what information that we can provide that the legislature would be interested in receiving so that everyone is aware as we make decisions about the budget, what the long-term cost of capital improvement projects would be. Senate Bill 1218 clarifies the order of succession to the Lieutenant Governor's office. We have a concern on the policy level about the order of succession. We believe the existing succession is appropriate. Changing it to be driven by the political parties raises some concern. And there could be an instance where the governor and lieutenant governor are jointly incapacitated, which would have no succession path available and may lead with no governor or lieutenant governor being able to be seated. Senate Bill 265 deals with sex trafficking. I am committed to improving the laws regarding sex trafficking, but this is on the list because of concerns raised by the Attorney General and 3 of the 4 prosecutors in the counties. They do believe that while enacting legislation specifically on sex trafficking, the unintended consequences of this measure would create loopholes and actually may make it more difficult to prosecute sex trafficking crimes as drafted in this measure. And so I've asked the Attorney General to work with the City Prosecutor's Office to really look at a bill that would strengthen the current sex laws regarding sex trafficking to see if we can come up with something that is more comprehensive and rather than open loopholes would really allow us to prosecute sex trafficking more aggressively. 6th is Senate Bill 349, which repealed the ethanol facility tax credit and provide for a renewable energy tax credit. This is on the list because of concerns that this measure is a violation of the U.S. Constitution's Commerce Clause. There is actually a state of Hawaii tax case where we tried to make or limit taxes specifically to residents and production in Hawaii, which was found to be unconstitutional. So the concern is that this measure would be found unconstitutional based on the U.S. Constitution. Senate Bill 569, increasing the dollar threshold with respect to property or services for theft in the second degree from the current $300 to $750. Again, the county prosecutors have and the retail merchants across the state have expressed concerns that this big increase in the threshold level would encourage more shoplifting. and other property crimes. And I just would like to point out, by resolution passed this session, there will be a comprehensive penal review by the prosecuting attorneys and Attorney General's office. And this would be a good opportunity to review the thresholds across all the crimes and make a consistent and thoughtful measure that would address it in all areas. And then finally, on the eighth bill, Senate Bill 1324, provides authority for the employee's retirement system to make direct payments of benefits to a non-member former spouse of a member on court order or judgment, divorce decree. We have been informed by the employee's retirement system that the provision to allow for an administrative fee to be incorporated into the operations of the pension system may be a violation of the Internal Revenue Code and would jeopardize their tax status. And that's why that's on. And with that, I'll open it up to any questions that anyone might have on any of those topics. Yes.
In regard to homelessness, getting homelessness to veterans by 2015, I guess.
Yeah.
Is Colin Gibbon going to be reappointed? Only just last year.
Yeah, we are evaluating his performance. I did sign a letter extending his term of office for 1 more month as we work to evaluate and determine the approach that we would like to take regarding homelessness.
Well, he got the number of homeless divided by 12. He said this is the amount that you need to get every month. But doing the math is not really doing the job.
Absolutely. So we're evaluating the performance of the homelessness program and really trying to align our efforts. We have been working with the mayors, and we will continue to work with the mayors. Well, we'll have lots of details to be worked through. We'll be working as hard as we can. Homelessness is a complex and tough issue. But if you don't have goals, you just like we aspire to be 100% renewable. If we don't have goals to end homelessness for veterans, then it's hard to make any progress.
Governor, you're also making news by what's not on your veto list, the rail tax. I assume you'll be signing that into law, and we'll go into law without your signature. Your thoughts on the recent revelation that it would take less than 6% increase in property taxes just to make up the $910 million shortfall that the project is.
I do think that that's part of the equation in terms about whether I sign or not the bill or allow the bill to become law. Clearly, I think the reason that I did not have it on my veto list is that in my review of the information provided, it's clear that the heart is short in terms of the funds required for that first segment. And the measure that the legislature passed does assure that there would be adequate funds based on the current budget projections.
Was some of your thinking that you did not want to see a property tax increase for
I do believe that that's part of the equation. The residents of Oahu are citizens of the state as well. And, I have been working with the mayors on a whole bunch of different efforts to coordinate and try to find synergy in providing services to the public.
Also, the absent from their intent to veto list is the medical marijuana dispensary creation, which, as we know, really took the very last minute push, a lot of meetings in those final hours. What can you speak to in terms of your decision? Do you intend to sign that, or do you intend to let that just go to law?
Yeah, I haven't really made a final decision about whether I'd signed it. There are concerns in terms of the implementation. The implementation schedule is very aggressive. We'll be working very hard to meet those deadlines. But the resources made available to the department, as well as the aggressive schedule, will be a challenge. So, I'm committed to implementing the law in the best way that we can. and the concern was with the aggressive schedule. Had looked at it in various different ways. We looked at the law and we believe that a county cannot be a permittee to take responsibility for distributing marijuana. But obviously, I think as we go through and we finalize the rules, we'll make a better determination.
And so the deadline for Department of Health, you think those things are achievable? Because we know they asked for some more time.
Right. So, we're going to make our best effort to meet the deadlines. As I said before, there's some concerns about the adequacy of the funds provided and the aggressive timeline. So, people used to say that to get any rules adopted by the state would take 2 years minimum. And so clearly we're going to work really hard to make the 6 months.
The sex trafficking bill, go into detail what loophole it created.
Part of the bill dealt with changing the definition of prostitution to sex trafficking, and it wasn't consistently applied through the prostitution statute. So obviously it created different definitions, and there may have been other references to prostitution that may not have been updated adequately. So I think it's just the nature. Sometimes, in legislation, the unintended consequences as you make changes in one part of the penal code, it doesn't get followed through appropriately. So as I said, the Attorney General and the prosecutors are committed as part of their review of the entire penal code this summer to look specifically at prostitution and sex trafficking, and then make a comprehensive review. As you may know, Hawaii's prostitution and laws against sex trafficking is one of the tier 1 across the country. So clearly our current statute covers many of the things that we want to prevent from happening. So I think we want to be thoughtful in the changes that we make.
The real issue is different. So divisive in the community. What is your message to the folks out there who are just so angry, who don't want to be paying this surcharge anymore? I mean, I remember at the beginning of the session, we asked you, you needed to convince them. Are you convinced at this point that besides the need to pay for the completion of current phase, given, again, trying to point out some of the issues that have been raised in recent days, are you at a point where you feel like it's okay for this tax, the surcharge to be used to pay for additional areas?
Well, I am committed to seeing the rail project successfully completed. This measure that will become law assures that the project, based on the current budget, has sufficient funds to finish the first phase of the projects that was adopted and codified into county law. And so, I am committed to that. The question of future extensions, I think it's clear that the legislature had intended that although planning might be allowed for with the current extension, but any future expansion or funds required for future expansion should be decided by future legislation.
Governor, the mayor had 3 options: raising property taxes and ending the project. Were they even considered as being planned?
Well, I mean, I do think that ending the project, it is something that is on in law, and we clearly had the state had authorized, and the county had exercised their ability to assess the tax. As you are aware, the bill before me also includes an authorization for the other counties to raise the taxes as well. And so that is something that also plays into this. As you know, the the other counties are continually asking for additional funds from the state. And I think that that played into part of the conversation as well.
You mentioned in your explanation that the bill would eliminate the opportunity to prosecute lesser statutes. But the bill actually also included not just such actions but promoting prostitution, which is the way these prosecuted now. So how is how
I can give you, the Attorney General has done a pretty detailed analysis of the loopholes, and I'd be more than happy to provide that. I think when you speak with the prosecutors, the bottom line was that they felt that the current statutes were probably more comprehensive, and they were concerned that the changes would make it more difficult to prosecute in some areas, and then create loopholes that would prevent them from prosecuting in others.
just following up on that, if the white prosecutor was the one who wanted the bill to pass, and part of his analysis was if things remain the same, then police can prosecute much more legally by taking by essentially threatening and prosecuting charges. Are you concerned about that kind of enforcement continuing where because some hospitals aren't treated like victims, they are then potentially used to more easily catch the victims?
Well, I mean, I haven't had a chance to speak with the Kauai prosecutor, so I'm not certain.
Governor, once the Office of Mauna Kea Management opens the access road, we expect that to happen either this week or sometime next week. What actions will you take to ensure that the workers, the convoy, the construction equipment can get over the mountain and start construction?
We are working with the university and all the agencies involved to create a plan that would assure that we can keep access safe for all of the workers, visitors, and the people who work in the other telescopes on Mauna Kea. So we look to enforce existing rules and regulations and laws, and then look at the authority that we have to secure the mountaintop and assure access. And so that's what we are focused on.
How do you prevent the same dynamic from happening that we've seen the last two times that the convoy has tried to make its way up, that folks just spot the road and the convoy has to turn back? Any thoughts on bringing out the National Guard?
No, I mean, we are working on a comprehensive plan. And so as we finalize those details, we'll be making announcements to the public. We are working with the university to assess the status of that access road, and then lining up the work that's required to reopen that road. The university is working through that, and once we are able to do that, then we'll look at what other action is required to assure public can safely access Mauna Kea.
National Guard an option that's being discussed at this point?
No.
But that's an option.
We are going to be looking at the actions that we need to take to assure that the public and the workers can access the facilities, the existing facilities, as well as those workers that would be involved with the project.
Governor, what's your thoughts on overnight camping? Because I know a long precedent was that no overnight camping is allowed, but there are Native Hawaiian protesters, as they call themselves, that haven't camped there overnight. So what's to say that any group not associated with protesting Mauna Kea goes up there and wants to start camping overnight? How would you handle that?
Well, we intend to enforce the laws as they exist today, even those laws and rules and regulations regarding camping.
And folks have been camping there overnight, though, and without any recognition from the government or any citation from the government. So what's to stop me and a group of friends from going over there and say that we want to enjoy the right to camp overnight as well?
Yeah, so we are reviewing the existing laws and regulations and intend to enforce them equally amongst everyone, public as well as protesters.
What cost or what commitment of resources is the state willing to make to ensure that access for TNT construction crews can happen and eventually the mountain can hopefully reopen to not just visitors but also local residents?
You know, the state has a duty and obligation to assure safe access to any facility. And we are committed to ensuring safe access to Mauna Kea. You know, and we are being smart about what that means and trying to be comprehensive in planning what changes would need to be made that gives us the best opportunity to assure safe access.
Does the UH or the state face any penalties from TNT planners because their construction schedule has been delayed? Is there any penalties whatsoever, thing that the state or UH faces for not getting the construction done on their time schedule?
No, there has been no discussion of penalties with the developers.
Just to be clear, so do you plan to make the campers and the protesters have been staying there now?
We do intend to enforce the laws on Mauna Kea. So yes, if they are there illegally, then we will be enforcing the law.
So you asking for more help from the county?
We are working with the county and you know, all the law enforcement to develop a comprehensive plan to assure the safety of Mauna Kea.
Would you bring other law enforcement agencies into it from the other counties?
You know, we are working through the details of what would be required. We do know that the project is a multi-year project. And so we are planning and looking at all of the cooperation agreements by law enforcement statewide to understand what assets we would have available to us and how we would need to work with each other to ensure that we can provide sustained safe access to Mauna Kea for current workers as well as those working on the project.
Was the dialogue ongoing, or is this it? Stop talking. Let's go.
You know, we are concerned because of the safety aspects. You know, the boulders and rocks and walls built on the road obviously provide a hazard to the general public as well as those existing employees working on the mountain, as well as those that may be involved with the TMT project. And so we are working to ensure the safety of all of those people to ensure that they can get access to their workplace so that they can continue. And as said before, TMT does have the permits and the right to proceed. So we're working to assure that they have access to exercise those rights.
It was explained to us today that the reason why the visitor center is closed is because of lack of personnel and resources needed to make sure that operations there can continue as a result of the influx of people up there since 2003. That's the statement that we were provided with. Can you speak to why there hasn't been a better plan to respond over the last 12 years, or what has really been more interest in going up to the summit of Mauna Kea?
You know, I think we are working with the university to improve our management of Mauna Kea in a lot of different ways. I do think that the situation today is very, very different than the situation in 2003. And I think we all, the university, DLNR, all of the parties, Office of Mauna Kea Management, are focused on anticipating what the needs are and developing the best action plan that we can to assure the public's safety. Okay. If not, thank you all very much for coming.